So we need to find the equation for a circle, and we are given a diameter, but not exactly. We're given the endpoints of a diameter. A diameter to me is really the length across a circle. So we are given these endpoints. What we are going to be able to do, see, this is the format for an equation of a circle. With those endpoints that we have, we're going to be able to find the center of those endpoints using midpoint formula. And then on the end, and the center is this h and k value. Once I find it, I will replace h and k with the midpoint, with the center. And then the only thing left that I'll have to do is find the radius. So let's start off with finding our midpoint using this midpoint formula. This says to do the x of 1 plus x of 2 divided by 2. All that is your first x value of -1 plus your second x value of -3 divided by 2. Same thing over here with your y values. Your y sub 1 is your first y value. Your y sub 2 is your second y value. Let's add those together. Divide by 2. We can simplify that down to -4/2 and 1/2. And then we can further and call this center, this midpoint between these two endpoints, we can call it -2. And I see a mistake right here. -2 negative is actually positive 1/2. So now that I have the center, the midpoint between the two endpoints, it can go right here. I'm not going to put it right there just yet. I want to worry about this radius squared first. So I am going to use the distance formula. I'm going to plug in the endpoints into the distance formula to get to my radius. Now, whenever I'm plugging these endpoints into the distance formula, I am really finding the diameter right this very second. I'm not actually finding the radius right this very second. So that's why I labeled my distance. I put d sub d because it's the distance of the diameter. Anyway, what the distance formula tells us to do is take the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. And so my x sub 2 value was -3, minus my x sub 1 value, minus -1. Y sub 2, second y value, y sub 1, first y value. And simplify that down. This minus a negative right here, that's like saying -3 plus 1, so that becomes -2 squared. 5 minus 4, that's like saying 5 plus 4, 9 squared, so 4 plus 81. We get the square root of 85. I'm not going to reduce that square root or anything. It doesn't reduce, but realize this number, again, is the diameter. So, yes, we have the center. We're ready to plug the center in. And I'm going to come back and talk about the diameter in just a second. But when I plug the center in, so I'm replacing h and k. Whenever I get done with this, the equation, instead of a -2, is going to be +2. And instead of positive 1/2 is going to be minus 1/2, and this is why. Um, write the formula down, but since we're replacing h and k, put parentheses where the h and k are. And what we'll do is we'll copy paste the -2 and the 1/2 into those positions. And when I do that copy paste procedure, this is what happens. So I had the minus something, so I put the minus the -2 right there. It turned to +2. The y minus, well, I put the 1/2 right there, and we'll just call that y minus 1/2. It's a whole lot easier to just realize, hey, whatever my center is, when I see it in the equation of the circle, the signs are the exact opposite. The signs that I see in the coordinate are the exact opposite of the signs that I see whenever I'm actually viewing the equation of the circle. And now all I have left to do is write my r squared. I'm not quite ready to write it. Well, r squared, that's the radius squared. And well, I have the diameter. We found that that's the square root of 85. So let's think through that a little bit. If you have a diameter, well, what's the relationship between a radius and a diameter? The radius is half of the diameter. It's the diameter divided by 2. So since I need the radius, I'm going to take the diameter that I have of 85, the square root of 85, and I'm going to divide it by 2. And that's the radius, the square root of 85 divided by 2. But remember, I don't just simply need the radius, I need the radius squared. So go further, and this square root of 85 divided by 2 that we just found, square it. And you got to square the numerator and the denominator. So when I square the square root of 85, it just takes the square root off. When I square the 2, it becomes 4. And this is what I'm going to place on the very end. So to get x plus 2 squared plus y minus 1/2 squared equals 85 over 4.